first of all, thank you very much for joining us today, Dave.
You're very welcome. I really appreciate the invite. Very excited.
This is episode 5 of the Oddball Effect, right? Hopefully 5 of 1,000, but we'll see.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. We have to get uncomfortable. Sorry, I keep saying the other way around. Get uncomfortable with the comfortable. Yes. No, cool. So yeah, welcome onto the show. So Dave, I guess a little bit about yourself. You run the David Goggins fan page, correct?
Yeah, I've got a Facebook page. It's called David Goggins Minds. And I started the Facebook page back in November. And it came about because I'm not very good at keeping up on my social media, especially Instagram, because up until about a year ago, I was very lifetime undiagnosed ADHD. And so about a year ago, I couldn't figure out why everybody was doing life fairly simply and why it always seemed like I was trying to sweep water uphill. And you know, if you've ever tried to do 10% of 10 different things, it's very disheartening because you never quite get ahead. The long and the short of that was just one day I was like, yeah, this needs to change. I talked to my doctor. He gave me some numbers. I called the number. I thought I was going to get a psychologist because what I wanted, or psychiatrist, because I wanted the drugs, the ADD drugs, because I thought that was the, yeah, I just thought that was the route. Turned out that I called a counselor. And so I went and saw this counselor for about 6 months, every week or every couple of weeks. And she did a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. And unbeknownst to me, right, she was very good at it. And so after a while, I started doing a lot of things that were like, wow, like, holy crow, okay, this is pretty good. But in the back of my mind, I knew that I still wanted that. So I got a prescription for what we could call the intro dose to some sort of drug. It's just a dextroamphetamine of some sort, 5 milligrams, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, the first day, I sat in front of my computer for 4 hours, didn't even look up.
Wow.
And I was like, is this how people do life? Oh my God, it's sensational. I got more done that week than I'd done in the whole year, you know? So because of that, what happened was I started something called Alpha Male Syndicate on Instagram, which, like I said, I don't even post very much anymore. And I had sort of all these ideas of doing something. And I read David Goggins' book, the first one, Can't Hurt Me. And I read a lot, but I was like, oh, David Goggins. So I looked on Facebook for a page, you know, a group, and I found a few, and I joined a few, and it wasn't like I thought I could do better, because there's really not much control you have if you start a group. I mean, you do, but you don't. But what I realized was, in reading through Goggins pages, fitness group pages, I'm an older guy, so there's a lot of over 50 pages groups that I belong to. And I just realized it was a bit of a mess, you know? And part of that ADD stuff was also a fairly decent dose of, OCD, right? Like, it's like, I want to have control.
Yeah.
Once I figured out why I wanted the control, I realized I don't really want it that much anymore. But I thought, I could do better than that. And so I just thought, you know what, for a lark, I'm going to start a David Goggins page. And I don't know if you saw the post a couple of months ago. So November, I started off, or November, I guess it was, I went away to Thailand for a month in March. And I was in Thailand, and I remember messaging my son. I was like, oh, this is hilarious. This page has 10,000 members, and I wasn't even paying attention, right? And I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. So I get back, and so that's April, May, June, July, August, September. We're at 279,000 members.
I've watched it grow. It's absolutely amazing.
I was just like, what? Now, and I got to say this, there was a bit of an ulterior motive to it once things got going. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I've got a lot of irons in the fire and trying to remove a few of them. But, my history is personal training and fitness and group training and CrossFit coaching and things like that. And I also really like mental performance. And I, over the last couple of years, really immersed myself into kind of trying to figure out why it is, for the most part, that if I want to do something really, really bad, and even though I know I want to do it, why doesn't it happen? And I've had friends go, why is it that we know what we should do, could do, want to do, and yet we fall short of it? And I go, well, the easy way would be like, maybe the universe just designed it that, it eliminates the stupid people from doing that and people that want to get to, let's say. And I go, there's got to be more to it. So studying a mental performance was this thing that I decided to try and make a part of the Goggins page. And that's why I said David Goggins Minds.
Right.
Yeah. And so
essentially Goggins did that, right? So Goggins preaches that he started with, that he calls himself stupid at one point. He can't read, can't write, et cetera, et cetera. But he just conditioned himself through repetition to do it, every time, right?
Well, yeah, right at the beginning you were talking about, the idea of getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. And I mean, that's so much respect for a guy like that to be in the position that he was in early on, killing roaches and drinking milkshakes at 4 a.m, to figuring out how to read and write and study and learn. And like, that's no easy task, especially when you're an adult, right? Because when you're a kid, you don't know any different. You don't know what you can't do. So everything's I can do it, let's say, or I'm willing to give it a try. But once the world has thrown enough rocks at you, you can be a little bit shy about taking on big challenges. And I think that's the one thing that sort of got me into the mental performance, and then try to put that inside the Goggins space. So I will say that there's a few things that are on the menu right now in terms of what's going to happen inside that page, because, I have something called MVPs, which are mission, vision, and core principles. And one of my missions is to help a lot of people. And I think through that page, I can. And everybody that wants to join the page now answers some questions to join the page. And I capture emails and I capture their answers to the questions, and I reach out with the idea of like, look, do you want to talk about mental performance? Because I'm more than willing to help out. And of course, well, I want to make a living as well, but I need to grow that part of my business. So it's been good. It's been interesting. I think I've got close to 10,000 email captures right now. It's absolutely insane. It's almost like I don't even know what to do. It throws me for a bit of a loop.
I love about it, Dave, is so I joined it about 3 or 4 months ago, as you know, and I was posting my journey through a pretty rough time. I was experiencing some pretty severe anxiety, as you know.
Yeah.
And I used hiking as a sort of a method to get out of it this time. And I love the fact that I could just post that there, and it felt as though, because it is lonely, right? When you're challenging trauma or changing mindset, you're doing it alone, essentially. In the middle of a forest or wherever you're doing it, and I just having people like it and just say, "Hey, well done, keep going," is such a boost, especially when you're in a dark time.
Yeah. That's the one thing that I think that I like the most about the group is that, look, I admin the page, and believe me, I get my share of messages of flack of people that are just, on whatever side of the fence they're on, that are throwing stones my way. And, for the most part, I just let that all slide. But what I find really funny about that is it's like, you joined a David Goggins Minds page, and yet you lack the discipline to, bite your tongue, not react. Right. And instead, maybe you could think about it and give a decent response. And so there's a few people that help me out on the page, and they tend to go through it and they get rid of all the spam and the steroid posts and the bots and things like that. And, we try and remove, crummy comments and things that are, what would you call it, like, inappropriate use of humor or sarcasm or being snide or mean to somebody, because it's like, look, it's not necessary. And for the most part, I think that if I find myself in the position of doing that, I'm doing it because I'm trying to make myself feel better by being not nice to somebody else, because I'm trying to climb over top of them. You know what I mean? In a sense.
Right.
And so what's tended to happen now inside the group is like, people make good comments and people are helpful. They're very respectful. And I believe that it's because, like you said, when you're walking a difficult path, which I think, I mean, this is somewhat out on a limb, but like most men are, I think.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd
it's
agree with
funny
that.
because I was watching some Instagram thing, which I shouldn't, because it just, I get a little riled up. And this woman was speaking about how men think. And I was just like, God, here we go. All right, tell me how we think, you know? And so she started going on about this thing. And I was like, look, so, well, I don't want to get all off on a big track.
No, that's
the
fine.
thing about being a man is that, look, I'm older, so sometimes it's a little challenging for, like, my daughter. She's 25, and so she sometimes gives me the what for about how I view the world. And I go, look, I view the world based on how I was brought up, and I was brought up by my parents who were living in, 80 years ago. And so you have to understand that I'm behind, and sometimes I don't want to be up to speed, let's say. And
Right.
so, and what I mean by that is like, look, I'm not mean, but sometimes I just don't give a shit. Like, I don't care. That's your problem. Unless you're bringing it to my front door, I don't care. Do what you want. But if you want me to, right, you can't yell at me to change my ways to suit your thing. And anyway, so this woman was just like, oh, I want, guys, if they would just, open up to their women and be more vulnerable and this, that. And I was just like, no, that's horrible advice. And it's only,
Yeah.
and the reason I say that is because there's a majority of, people like Jordan Peterson or who, and who, again, I respect him because he's got a doctorate in psychology. And he's, and he's like, look, without making it all complex, is like, if you're going to be really, really vulnerable and open up and cry in front of your woman, you just notch it level down in her eyes a little bit. And it's like, that's why guys are like, I'm going for a drive. I'm going out to the garage. It's like, I'm going out to the garage so I can grab my sledgehammer and beat the shit out of a tire for 20 minutes because it's the only way I can like purge the stuff, right?
Right.
Now that's pretty, that's probably closer to one end of that sort of
That's
thought
it.
spectrum, right? But
I
but
don't
it's
own
like,
a sledgehammer.
like it's one of those things where it's like, look, see, like the idea of like, if my daughter was ever in a bad situation and the choice was that I had to take a bullet for her, there's no option. It's in my brain. The crappy part is like, well, shit, I got to die now. But it's like, but I also hold myself to the standard of like, well, that's just my job. And so it's the same idea with anything. If there's something that you need to do, you just step up and do it. And I think the Goggins page has helped me for that, because there are so many people that just do amazing things. Do you know what I mean? Like the person
it's
that's
crazy,
just,
isn't it?
I get up
Oh,
at
I
4
love
o'clock
it.
every morning and I run a 10K. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. I was like, I'm just going hiking, dudes.
Yeah,
But for me, it was tough.
But I think though, and then there's the thing too, was that at the beginning when people there was a lot of people that were, and I get this, I can't control people and that's fine. But there are people that are just hardcore. There's no other option. It's like Goggins up. They do have a true Goggins mindset. The chat, and a lot of people are, most of them are taught that, and they may have a proclivity to learn it easier or better in terms of that discipline and that motivation, self-discipline. But it's like David Goggins is an anomaly, right? Like,
Yeah.
I like his books. There are other people that I like their books more in terms of in the same realm, let's say, because, and the reason that I say that is like, look, David Goggins is a 1 in a 10 million person. Well, probably not, but so it's a little hard for me to directly align with it.
Right.
And part of it is only...
You'd have to end up, 100K runs every month,
Yeah, but I think the message is the part, right?
Correct.
It's just
that's
do
what
the things that are tough, find the point where you want to quit, and then ask yourself, are you going to be a little bitch about this, or are you just going to take another step? 5 more seconds in the ice bath, 10 more steps down that road. I'm going to hike to the top of that hill, right? Take a breather when I get there, not here. And all that stuff. And so then once you start rolling down that path, on the Goggins page, though, the people that are really, really hardcore will just point blank be like, well, suck it up and do better. And at first I kind of got a little bit, I don't know, I was not offended. I was just like, oh man, come on, man, settle down. And part of it was because I realized, like, we're all different, and it's like some people are motivated by the carrot or the stick, right? It's the same with personal training. There are people that would like me to push them really hard and yell at them. And then there's other people that want me to praise them and treat them very kindly. And that's what motivates them to do better. And so I realized that we all need to take a step back before you jump to a conclusion, right? You want to respond to somebody, not react to them.
You want to meet them at their level if you can, right? And I feel like if you can, right? And I agree with that. I think, and going through my own personal struggles taught me that, first of all, obviously don't judge a book by its cover in a way. You never know what's going on in someone's life, right? The trauma. So some people, they might be like, oh, it's easy. Just run to that hill, right? It's like, yeah, but this person, maybe they just lost their mum. Maybe they've just, you know what I mean? Like their life's falling apart. That hill to them is way different to the hill to the guy who's been running hills all day. You know what I mean? He doesn't have any sort of major issues in his life happening, right? And it's very different, right?
You know what's funny? You say that, and I try's not the word, right? I do. I get a little bit better at it. Is meeting people where they're at, or trying to not judge them for whatever, because you don't know what people are going through. I was at a seminar one time, can't remember what it was for. We had to get into groups, or myself and 3 other guys, and what we had to do is we had to tell our life story in an abbreviated way.
30 seconds. The 30
well,
second
yeah,
round,
it was about a minute or 2,
story.
right? And so, my past wasn't really good a long time ago, and I probably came within about 20 minutes of changing the direction of my life, which probably would have just included drugs and a crime and probably death early, So I tell this story of how I got to this point. I ended up as a drug addict, which was really bizarre, about 15 years ago, I guess now. And so I tell this story and blah, 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 and they're all just like, oh, and now, of course, I don't know how they're viewing it. I don't know their experiences. And so then this other gentleman started talking, and coincidentally, he was from Australia. He was in the shipping business or something anyways, but when he was younger, he witnessed his brother getting murdered. And honestly, that was the most terrible thing I ever heard, until he told me that 7 years after that happened, he saw his other brother get killed. And this gentleman was kind, respectful, and just like a happy gentleman. And I was just like, holy shit. He was the guy standing behind me in the coffee lineup. Yeah. And so it was just so, anyways, and the other people had stories of getting out of a communist country in the middle of the night with nothing on their backs but their wife and their 2 kids. And I was just like, yeah, I got it made. This is crazy.
But yeah, definitely. So you realize in that moment, that's great learning. You just realize how hard it can really get. I think for me as well, that was similar when I heard Goggins for the first time. I'd never heard someone sort of who's the way he delivered it was the first time I actually heard someone say, hey, stop being the victim. And you're in the suck and there's no way out. There's no quick way out, right? I was going through a really bad anxiety break, right? And I used to think, I'll just go to sleep. I'll wake up, it'll be gone. It wasn't. And then I get next day, I'm like, maybe if I just relax here like this, or maybe I'll watch Netflix.
Sure.
And it's like, dude, you're dealing with trauma. You don't just Netflix and chill out of trauma, right? And I kept trying that method of just the short answer, go to the doctor. Hey, what do you got? Here's a Valium. All right. Yeah, that can be dangerous, right? We all know. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go down that road.
Yeah. There's a whole thing behind that. But, and I just kept trying to get the short, and I realized I got to a point where I was like, this isn't working. I need something different. And that's actually around the time when he went on Joe Rogan, the first episode.
Sure.
And he told his life story. It's similar to what you heard at that, where everyone was sharing the thing. I heard his story, like about, his dad and everything like that.
That crazy,
like,
right?
Wow, if he can do it, then maybe there's something in me that can do it too. And that's when and then I used physical exercise at that point. And that was like running. Yep. So I wasn't sleeping because I had like insomnia. I wasn't sleeping like 2 nights in a row. And I don't know if you've been through that yourself, but
no, I
really
think
hard.
that's got to be, it would be exhausting. And to have, like, how does your brain function when it
doesn't very
not
well.
getting reset in a sense, right? Yeah, no, but it's right, fair. David Goggins was okay, so that was the part about like, when he's talking about just how to don't use excuses about things. I talked before, I have, so I operate under 4 core principles, and there's an acronym, which is WOLF, and one is work ethic, where I demand focus, passion, and discipline from myself and my clients and my personal circle. And so I try and remove people that are, let's say, at least not striving to be a little bit better. I don't just throw everybody out, but and then O is for ownership. And so ownership is like, I know and I accept 100% responsibility for my life, my actions and my behaviors. I don't use excuses. I don't complain. There's no alibis, and I will not play a victim. Now, it took a long time to have that set in as an auto response to outside stimulus, because for a long time, it didn't take very much to take me out of the day. Yeah, it would take one crummy comment or one weird text or just some bad news, and I'd be like, oh, well, tomorrow, I guess. Meanwhile, it's like 2 p.m. There's like 10 more hours before bed, but I'm done.
Yeah, I can relate to that. 100%.
So, yeah, and that whole thing about trying to foster self-discipline and be, well, just, look, yeah, it sucks. So what? It's going to suck while you're doing something that's better for you. And it's going to suck just as much if you're choosing not to do anything. So I think once you sort of start developing some pretty decent routines and habits of excellence and things like that, and when you get that feedback, a little bit of good comes out of something, that feeling after a run, that feeling after a workout, like I've been doing 75 hard, right? I think I'm on day, 13
days ago, I think you posted.
Yeah. And so the first couple of weeks were pretty rough. The middle's been really good. And now I'm near the end, and there are some mornings I get up and it's, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I really don't want to work out right now, and there have been in the last couple of weeks, I would say 4 times where I've been like, I'll do it later. Now, those 4 times were mental slip-ups by me where I didn't hold myself accountable like I said I would. And on 2 of those times, I worked out like later in the morning. 2 of those times, 9 p.m. I'm like, you lazy shit. You said, look at where you're at now. You're going to bed in an hour. You could have had this all done. Now you got to go do it. And what was funny about it was like, so, I gave myself crap for that and I did it. And then what I didn't do was I didn't get harsh on myself. I slapped myself on the back and said, good job. Right? Like I didn't live in the past. It was just present tense. You got it done. Way to go.
Dave, just quickly for the audience, 75 hard, do you mind explaining quickly, like, is that 45 minutes a day, twice a day? Is that right?
So I think the way that they had designed it was it's 2 45-minute workouts, and one of them needs to be outside of some sort. Now, it's all relative to where you're at, right? Because
like we were talking about the bears
Mr. Smith's
near you.
workout is a walk. Somebody else did 45 minutes of straight running or hiking or whatever. And so there's that. You have to drink a gallon of water a day. Tough to do if you're not a water drinker, especially at the beginning. But it maps out really well if you just divide all the water into your hours of the day. And then it's read 10 pages of a self-help book. Take a picture every day of yourself. A bit of a shocker right at the beginning. Anyways, that would get into me about that. Things were looking better. And then also follow a nutritional plan of some sort, and no sugar or alcohol. Well, no extra sugar or alcohol. And so, it was, there was a couple times where I was in a little deep, went camping in the summer with buddies, and it was just like, I'm good with my gallon of water, thanks. But I made it through. It's all good. So, awesome. And so, I'm excited to get to it. I have to say, in retrospect, it was quite funny to think that I thought that I was just going to go and crush it with no hiccups. Who am I to think, what? I've messed up so many things in my life generally. I thought, okay, you got this. And then in day 20, I forgot 2 things, like a picture and a reading, I think, on day 20. And I was like, well, too bad for you, I guess, because you said you were going to follow this and you chose not to. So now you're starting at day 1. So technically, really, I've done 80-something days now. But when I get to the end of this, what I realize, I've just developed great habits and routines. And it's the 75 hard as a challenge ends. But now I'm just excited about making a new challenge. And it might not be that, but I will keep some of those things about it for sure.
I think so with David Goggins, a lot of themes comes up. So, it's mental fortitude and pushing your willpower. It's using something of a physical nature, whether it's running or pushing your physical limits, because that releases endorphins and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. And then there's this idea that when you think you're done, you're not even 40% done, sort of thing. And the whole story around David Goggins, it's been a little while since I visited, but he was overweight. He was, exterminating cockroaches. The stepfather was abusive, and then the new father was, he killed, he got shot or something, and it was intense, right?
Yeah.
But I think of David Goggins as, and a lot of the public see him as this ex-Navy SEAL, keeps on running. He just doesn't stop. He's this really intense dude.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what got him out of a really dark hole. But he even says now, everyone sees me as this guy that's always running. It's no, I'm not hard all the time. Stay hard, but I'm not going to be hard every minute for the next 40 years. It's not sustainable.
Sure.
I think also he hates running as well. He says that, right? He hates putting the runners even to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he knows that that's his path to creating the way, that's the way that's how he needs to operate to have his brain work the way that he needs it. Let's say. Yeah. Now, let's admit, right? He's an overachiever. I can't remember. Do you know the name of the gentleman in the United States? I wish I should have thought about this before. He's a bow shooter. He runs a marathon every day.
Oh, he's been on Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah. And
I forgot his name.
Is it Cam? Something?
Cam, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, go check him out and watch some of his stuff. It's dude gets up at 4 a.m, runs a marathon, goes to work, works the day, goes home, loves his wife and his family, shoots arrows for a couple hours. You're packing 2 days into one every day, right? Yeah. And so that's not easy to do. I mean, the average person they don't do enough to fill their day, let's say, right? Especially when it comes to the hard things. So with Goggins is that, he's just got that mindset. It's well, here's what I got to do in order to feel better. When you were talking about the self-discipline part, what I've discovered, it's okay if I talk about mental performance stuff for a second.
Yeah, of course.
So imagine I made a post, I think, in the group page today, I believe it was. And it was about cognitive biases. And so, right, so it's an interesting thing. If you're interested about how your brain works and how you view the world, it takes a little bit of self-discovery. Pardon me. The challenge is your ego, our ego, hates it when it gets put under the microscope. Yeah? Because now it's this crazy attack of self. Yeah? Because your ego's like, hey man, don't worry about it. I got you. I'm looking out for you. And you're like, yeah, but we're doing shitty. And they're going, well, you could be doing shittier. So it's not too bad. You know? And I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, this is odd. I got to figure this out. So for myself, what happened was I realized when it comes to learning new things, it's probably a big challenge I'm getting better at it. So I'm excited about learning new things. But for a while, I was quite comfortable thinking I knew what I knew and what I knew was good enough and how it worked in my world was fine. And then I realized like nothing could be further from the truth, because what will happen is if I look back on 5 years or 10 years or 5 months, it's like, well, what did you say that you were going to do and make happen? What did you do and what didn't you do? And for most people, it's all the same. It's like 90% of the stuff never got done. So, it was like I was living in a hoping, wishing, dreaming world.
Right? It's safe though, right? The brain wants safe. The brain is engineered for safe, right? So
beautiful,
isn't it? So it'll tell you if the brain had its own way, you'd be sitting on the couch doing nothing all day.
Absolutely, and thinking it was all right.
Comfortable.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
and you can see it in society, in like first world society, right, where the pressures are low and the stakes aren't as high, right? We're just finding ways to make everything so much easier, user friendly, which is I get. There's it can be good as well, but it creates couch potatoes. Essentially.
Yeah, humans are just fantastic at finding ways of making things easier, and then at the same time, sort of misunderstanding that, well, maybe that's probably not like the best way to go about it. It doesn't have to be easier. I don't know what the word would be, but it would be like, well, we could streamline it a bit, but like it's all accept responsibility and work hard, right?
Yeah.
And so that self-discipline part, well, I'll go back to your mindset. So, there's a difference between what you would think of like a average mindset and an above average or an elite mindset. And think of that elite as like a growth mindset, right? And we've all experienced this. Like I'll sit in a coffee shop and work on my computer in the morning and I'll watch people walk in and out, and you can tell right off, right? Who's having a good day, who's excited to be going through life, who's dragging their ass, and it's like, well, so imagine this, right? Your body language is a big thing. If you decided to stand up tall, chest up, chin down, nice posture, good stride, automatically you're feeling better. Like you didn't even do much, but you're feeling better for some reason, and then there's focus part of that, right? Which is like, we would say like the cognitive behavioral therapy thing that my counselor did was, look, when you're brushing your teeth for a minute, there's nothing to do. Like if you just believe for a moment, look, there's nothing that can be done, right? Whatever's happening for work today can't happen till you're there. Whatever happened yesterday, why you're dragging that around with you, I can't tell you. So it's just like sit there and brush your teeth. Yep.
It's so hard though, isn't it? Just to brush your teeth and be present. It's the hardest thing in the world. I'm terrible at it. And to be honest, after speaking with you, Dave, I probably should go and do the 75 hard after this, because brushing my teeth, I'm a year in the future and 2 years in the past at the same time.
Yeah. And so what I discovered was and what the irony is you ever tell somebody something or that you've learned, or you give sort of this opinion on something, but you don't do it yourself. Yeah. I'm famous for that.
I try not to anymore, but I was super guilty of that.
Well, I've done it with my kids, because it was like, hey, here's what you should do. and then, I go back home or something, I'd be like, oh God, they were probably like, that guy's an idiot. What's he talking about?
Sorry, no, you finish your story.
No, please, go ahead.
I was just going to say, have you ever experienced, at least for me, right, growing up and navigating adulthood, and I relate to a lot of things you say about, around ADHD, like starting a lot of projects and feeling like your thoughts are spread. Have you found as you go down that path, you tend to find self-development, self-growth, you find Tony Robbins and, these characters that really push your mindset, but then you become like this really intense, like person that's all about self-development, and to people who just live their lives relatively, in the mid, like not too extreme, not too, like they don't get too down, you can come across really hard. So it almost sounds like you're taking out your own frustrations of you not being accountable to yourself and projecting that onto other people.
That's exactly what that's the thought that I had after I would say something to somebody about how you should be doing it. And then there's an old saying, like, when AA, it's like, well, when you point a finger at somebody, there's three pointing back at you. Yeah.
That's so true.
And it's a big deal, man. It's like, look, before you start, there's a million cliches. I love cliches because they're like they're the quick one-liners to a complicated thing. It's like people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, I never really thought about it for a while until I was like, oh, yeah. So, that was the funny thing about, giving advice to my kids. It's like, you should do this. And then I'd go home and I was like, the only reason you said that is because you're not doing that. And so you better have a think on that. Yeah.
What's like when looking back in your sort of your adulthood or like the last 30, 40 years, what period do you feel like was the most difficult time that you had to navigate? I guess like mentally, was there a certain period that comes to mind when I asked that question?
Wow. Well, I think that I didn't know that I was really mixed up with this attention deficit scenario. Like, I just didn't know that that's how I was operating in the world. And so I try not to look back at it and be too melancholy about it.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, man, like there was a time when I thought, what would life have been like if you had known 40 years ago that you were like that?
Yeah.
Right? Now, in all fairness, I can't go back, so it's no big deal. I can only go back like a couple of years, right?
So paint the picture for us. You were Dave at 20 years old going through this, or?
Yeah, like I didn't know though, right? Like I didn't know that. Plus too, like having an addictive behavior, let's say, right? Partially because of that. When I was young and rebellious and silly, looking back, it was like, wow, so you were the last one to leave the party all the time and the last still drinking or still, smoking weed or whatever it was. And it's not to say that that was the mainstay of my life, but, in an early on time, it was just like, you're chasing because there's no social media. So I'm chasing the dopamine rush, which would have been acceptance from others, trying to navigate and find my way in life and path. I also know that I think that I would say I went to Metallica in Seattle on Sunday with my son. And it was funny because we were driving home and I said, what's really funny is like, next year I'm going to be 60. And first of all, there's no prep for the spins around the sun. Like it just shows up and you're like, what?
I feel that I'm 34 and I'm still like, part of me is like, I'm 34 now, right?
Yeah.
Wow. A few years ago I was 20.
Yeah, well, of course, right? And so it was really funny. And I said, what's been really weird is because I've always felt that I'm chronologically 60, metabolically somewhere, hopefully in my mid 40s, and mentally I'm still like 30. And I'm trying to raise that number a bit, right? With responsibility and having good habits. But I was like, I'm always late to the party. And so there's a part of it where I'm like, well, I'm kind of happy that I'm 60. I'm trying to start like 2-3 businesses. I'm like, people are like, oh, I'm semi-retired. I'm like, retired? What are you going to do? Nothing? You plan on doing nothing for the next 25 years, 20 years?
That's a horrible thought.
Yeah, it sounds lousy.
Super boring.
But it's like, I'm just kind of like, I think that I'm excited that I have that I created like another chance in life to move forward and have an impact and do good things and just like choose happiness again, right? like being a drug addict sucked. Being all wonky in my brain sucked. Pretended it was good, you know, but had no idea that it was pretty bad. So, yeah, man, my 20s, 30s were pretty decent. Like, okay, I'll tell this story sometimes when I do presentation with mental performance stuff. I was like, look, imagine this, right? You're 35 years old and you're married and you got 2 kids, and you got a house and you got a car and you got a good job and career and lots of friends. You go on holidays. Life is pretty decent. And then one day you're eating nachos at the kitchen table with your wife and she's like, I don't really think things are working out. And it's like what? And it's really funny because it's like, look, it's not like you don't know. You're just pretending that you don't know. And that somehow if you both don't do anything about it, there's going to be some magic that happens in the universe and it's going to get better. And so I know well after the fact that I was just mentally didn't have the capacity to deal with it and was immature enough to be okay with that. And so the next thing I know, it's like I go from all that to a single dad seeing his kids once every couple of weeks, living in a basement suite halfway across town. And, you know, skip forward a couple of years, I'm having a few more beers than usual. And all of a sudden, every day I'm having a few more beers than usual. And then after a while, it's like, well, maybe we should do this. And then the next thing you know, it's 2 years later, I'm living in my car, no money, 80 grand in debt, had my kids taken, like I'm putting a ski mask on, ready to go rob a store, see if I can get some more drugs. And, you know, it was like right at that moment where, now I'm not a God person. And I struggle with this a lot because I'm still trying to figure out when my conscience went, yeah, you're not that guy. So you should figure it out. Like I honestly, man, I was about to get in my car. Like I was set, had the mask, had my knife, right? And that's what I mean. Like I was 20 minutes away from a completely different world.
And can I just jump in, Dave?
Yeah.
That's really fascinating to me. That moment, that pivotal moment, that turning point, right? Was it when your conscious spoke to you in that way? And you don't refer to it as God, so to speak, but, you know, something within you that was wiser than you at that time, or perhaps had a sort of a third bird eye perspective on your life. Here you are. Was that change after that? Did you just sort of put it back? And is that when you started making steps forward to becoming this David Longmore that we're speaking with now, who's, you know, obviously...
Well, I didn't know that was the catalyst to get it going down that road.
How old were you then, Dave, just out of curiosity?
I was 40.
Yeah.
41, maybe. And, you know, so what happened was, so I didn't do that. I went to bed. It was like 3 a.m. I had to get up like 3 hours later to go to work. Went to work, did a shitty job, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I knew, like, at that point, I was like, I can't do that. And so the next couple of days were pretty horrible. And I called my ex, actually, who's a wonderful person. I mean, that's probably be a somewhat major regret in the sense, or at least I'm not happy that I lacked the capacity to make that work, let's say. Right? Because I'm super happy that she's the mother of our kids, like fantastic person to do the job, right? But so what happened was, I was like, okay, well, I'm not that person, right? So, and I think that was, I mean, maybe it was just, you know, that little glitch in the matrix where my brain got a real glimpse of reality and went, no. Like the universe was like, no, we'll just give you a real snippet of who you are, and now you can choose what you'd like to do. Right? So it's like you're living this illusion.
Yeah.
Right? And you haven't quite figured out how to change that illusion. We'll give you a little push. And so what happened was and then I had to go tell my dad. And, well, okay, I'll tell you this part. So then in the middle of all the chaos, my mom had a couple of strokes and she died. And my dad called me, and I was so high, like it didn't even, I was just like, yeah, whatever. And then now it's a year later, and I gotta go visit my dad, and I'm like, okay, well, you better have a seat for this, because this is going to give you a big wow. And then I just said, look, I need help. Like, can you help me go to rehab? And so I spent like 3 months of rehab, which was phenomenal. Like, well, first, not having access to any drugs or alcohol is a big help. But being in an environment where everybody wants to get better, they don't want to at the beginning. You don't want to be there. But after a little while, you're kind of like, yeah, okay, well, if this is the path, then let's go. And I know I did. And so what happened was, well, it was funny when it was all over and you were leaving, it was a graduation day kind of thing. You had to go up in front of everybody and say whatever you were going to say. And the funny part was, in the crowd of about 60 people, there's people that have been there one day less than you have, and there's people that have been there for an hour, right? And they're like on the struggle bus, like they have no idea what's going on. Life is horrible. I'm trapped, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what's really, really messed up about this is that I had to become a drug addict so I could leave here being the person that I think that I always wanted to be.
Yeah, wow.
And I was like, well, that was a really crummy path. And some people don't get to make that speech at the end, right?
Right.
Anyway, so I was like, wow, okay, from that point forward, I was just like, let's try and stay sorted. And I took a little mental foray into NLP, which is Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I had a friend that I met who he and his wife were both practitioners. And so I did some work with them, and then I started reading about it. And I was like, this is fascinating. I was like, I hate cottage cheese. And in 5 minutes, I'm eating a bowl of cottage cheese and I'm liking it. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What kind of sorcery is this?
For the audience, and I guess for my benefit too, what is NLP? It's like
so
like
the idea behind NLP is that our brain operates in a certain way, and there's ways of helping yourself think. We'll call it let's say it's habits and routines and your thoughts about how you go about doing things, right? Okay. It's all about changing your behaviors. And that's where it sort of gets a little slippery, right? Because, well, if you don't want to change your behaviors, it's going to be a little challenging to get that done. And so what happens inside NLP is trying to figure out, well, why do you do the things that you do? Because like in the terms of me wanting to not do drugs anymore, we all know inside ourselves and our thoughts and our deepest secrets and our biggest fears. And we also, and that's the part where it's like, we think that we can't. There's that thing called imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You heard about that, right? It's where we think that we're not good enough to do something, or when we're doing it, we're thinking, oh, if somebody finds out that I'm not. And it's like, look, first of all, who thinks less about you than you do? Everybody. So just the idea of thinking that somebody's thinking about you is quite funny, a little delusional. But it's like, but they're also not thinking about how you're doing. They're thinking about how they're doing. And their bank account and bills and family and their crappy car that can barely get them to work, whatever's on their plate. I haven't slept in 2 days. You're thinking about somebody else?
I actually got to 3 days at one point. 4 days, actually. My worst was 3 nights in a row, Dave.
Jesus.
You know how bad it was?
But you're not thinking about anybody else, right?
I wasn't thinking at all.
Well, no, indeed. But then, so what happens with NLP is just this idea that if you can understand the cycle of how you think, then you can change your behaviors. And NLP is, let's say it's the difference between, it's the middle of psychology or psychiatry, right? Where it's like, your psychiatrist wants you in that chair for 4 years because it's the only way we can get through this is to talk about it forever. NLP was like, well, we're going to shorten that process up a little bit, which is fantastic because there's instant ways of changing your thoughts and behaviors. And then what I do, like with mental performance mastery kind of stuff, is that, well, I teach the how to do it, not just the what. People will be like, oh, you need to have self-discipline. You see it on the Goggins page. You need discipline. And then nobody tells you how to do it. That's like, well, fantastic. Yeah, now I got 700 things that I know I need to do. Nobody's shown me how. And then what I've learned is that if for myself, I'll only speak for myself, that if I learn the tools, get the tools, learn how to do it, apply the tools, pretty short. Like, can I share something else with you about it?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So you see all these.
Yeah, wow.
So this is really funny because I don't have any I got this one on my desk that says, just watch me. So and this one is for the same guy because he really pissed me off. It says, prove that effer wrong. Show him the level up.
Yeah.
I love that.
Because he just trashed me one day in some comments on a post that I made on my personal Facebook page, and I was just like,
This
Okay.
reminds me of what Goggins said when he put all the haters in the earphones.
yeah,
When he,
okay. So
That's
this
it,
is this is a little bit of a mix of it. So what this is these I call them signs of success. I've got one on my door over there that says focus, passion, and discipline. I've got one on the mirror in my bedroom that says Goggins the F up. Like there are all these little reminders, and I look at them all the time. And then once a week, I take them down and I rewrite them on different colored Post-its with different colored felt pens and put them somewhere else. Now, it's very, what would be viewed at from the outside might be viewed at like, it's pretty out there, dude. I'm like, you know what? You're not wrong.
So they're around the house. So when guests
they're all
come,
over
they're
the
just
place.
like going to the toilet and it's like, just fucking
Yeah.
Goggins up.
Goggins the F up. They're like, what's the...
That's
But
awesome.
and there's one in my kitchen that says stop being a little bitch. And so, but what's funny is that, okay, so when I was seeing the counselor, what I did was I was like, look, man, you're all over the map, right? Like I don't have a schedule for the day. I'm just kind of going with the flow because I like that. Like I thought that was the path that I should take because it feels right. And then,
Can I say something, Dave?
yeah, please.
I feel like that's the path that is often confused for freedom in a way, right? So it's sort
Yeah.
of like, I'm free to do what I feel like,
Yeah.
but you're
So
not.
true.
You're trapped in your own mind because your mind is now free to run wherever it wants and take you wherever it wants.
Yeah.
But
And
that's
so
why
it's
they
gonna
say
choose
discipline is the path to freedom.
Yeah, and the path of least resistance. Well, look, Jordan Peterson said at one time. Well, actually, somebody gave me the book, "The Obstacle Is the Way," which is a good book.
Ryan Holiday?
Is that Ryan Holiday book?
Yeah, I think so.
And it's like, and then I read Atomic Habits, and then Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, and I started piecing together some of these things, and I realized that I was. Jordan Peterson thing, it was like he was telling a story about Peter Pan. And I was like, oh God.
How's he going to tie this into it?
No. I go, is there a picture of me beside that? Because that's how I was viewing how I was doing life. It was like, no, I don't like authority. I don't like the rules. I don't like the fact that you told me that that's our policy. Yeah. It was like I'm trying to force circles into squares my whole life, thinking that was the way to go. And if I had paid attention when my dad would say, you go around the chip on your shoulder thinking like you're mad at the world for it not working the way you want it to. How about working the way that the world wants you to? And maybe it'll be easier, kind of thing. Anyway, so here's the true OCD. I took a graph, like I took line paper, but graph paper, and I wrote down in 15-minute blocks. This was a good thing on time management and habits. 15-minute blocks from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, and I filled it up with stuff to do. And I did that for 90 days.
Wow.
Now, here's what I did. So get up, brush teeth, take a pee, put the dog out, check. So I put a check mark. Now the check mark was the dopamine hit. Okay, so now I'm seeking the dopamine hit for me doing things that not necessarily I don't want to do, but I'm just not, yeah? And so then it would be, okay, so now you're going to make breakfast, take a shower, get dressed for work, check. And it went on and on and on. And then what happened was after the first week, I would look at all the ones that I didn't check. Those were the big ones, right? Those were those were the keys. I was like, oh, yeah, man, all right. So you better sort that out. And then what it turned into was 30 minutes turned into, or 15-minute blocks turned into 30-minute blocks. Some of them were hour long, right? And then now it's like I could tell you in my brain what my day looks like every day between 5:45 when I wake up and 10 o'clock when I go to bed.
So you still live in those 15-minute increments? Like, do you
No,
feel
so let's say that first 2 hours of the day, right? From 5:45 till 8 o'clock. I do all of those things now, but I don't have to check them off.
Gotcha. It's automatic.
They're just a habit. They're my routines and behaviors, right? And so that was fantastic. I'm telling you, out of all the things that I've done in the last couple of years, bar none, the best thing for me.
Dave, just quickly. So now that you're following this routine, coming back to your ADHD or the mind that is always everywhere.
Yep.
Do you feel like that's calmed your mind down now that you live like this? Do you feel calmer in your everyday life? Do you feel more present?
Definitely. Because there's no anxiety about the fear of the unknown, in a sense, now I will say 100%, like the small dose of ADHD drugs does a great job of me being present, but I could also be present and watch TV for 6 straight hours. It's not, so I still have to choose how to make that calm brain operate. I, for myself, I've just found it to be really, really helpful. I feel excited because I know that before I go to bed, I review tomorrow's day, and then I choose what's called MIT's most important tasks. And so I write down the 3 most important things that I have to do tomorrow. Even if I've got 15 things to do, these are the 3 most important. And then the question is, if all you accomplished today was 2 or 3 of those things, would you be okay with your day? And if the answer is yes, those are the things to do, not the 12 other things that you think are important, right? Which aren't.
That's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
really cool.
so then I do that, and it's like, it's just, and then, man, I've gotten into the habit of gratitude and doing some decent visualizations of things. And some of it for most people will seem very, I don't know what the word is, out there. Well, right. So if you look at the pragmatic side of somebody inside the David Goggins Minds group, right? A really hard-edged alpha go-getter. I'm jealous of that part of them, but I also think that they're lacking things, right? Because, and they are, and that would be maybe some emotional regulation, openness in terms of information, all these kinds of things,
empathy.
Yeah, sure, right? And so that's why they're just like, oh, do that, harden up. And it's like, well, yeah, but Mary over here, she's not quite hard. She's not responding very well to that, right? She thinks you're mad at her, and yet she's just like, And so,
of course.
So, I mean, so I think that I'm just trying to be a better person as a whole. And I'm just trying to do it one step at a time. And I find that a lot of things seem to be working pretty decent. Well, I'm happy, you know? Sure. I'm not, look, when I say happy, I'm happy I'm not content. There's lots of stuff to do, and there's a lot of hard things to do. But it's just more like, look, I know that if you've got good habits and routines, and you're kind of sorting yourself out a little bit emotionally, and you have a toolbox where you can choose things that are going to work in scenarios, it makes a lot of things so much easier.
On the topic of habits, I recently read The Atomic Habits. Sort of him breaking it down into a trigger, a craving, an action, a response. Like
the habit cycle.
Yeah, that really, and it really sort of resonated with me, where it can be both positive and negative. The example he uses is a recovering heroin addict going down the aisle and with his psychologist, and then smelling bleach and going, stop, like this is where I'm getting that trigger.
Right.
And it was because he'd been using bleach to clean the needles, and he hadn't made that conscious association.
Yeah, that was good. The next step is
right.
Pretty close.
So there's a lot of stuff that's both conscious and subconscious that we can use to both navigate positive thoughts. But then I guess like what added another layer on that was reading a book called The Molecule of More, and it talks about the dopamine circuitry, the reward system, and it's not necessarily the response from the run or the endorphins or the drugs or whatever it is. It's the anticipation of that and the surprise of it. Because what happens when you go through social media? The first time you get the hit, you play it again, and then it's the same thing, you get the hit. But after a while, it drops off and you don't enjoy it anymore, but you keep doing it, right? So it's like, it's the surprise and anticipation. But if you expect it and it's the same response, you
What was the name of the book? The Molecule what?
Molecule of More. It's, I guess, like, it's based on dopamine and, like wanting more.
Add it to the list.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I think that's a big reason why I've been able to stick to habits for 75 days or like 3 months, but I find it hard to stick to a habit that I want as like a lifelong habit, because I start to know and expect what the reward is from the run. And, after you get to 3 kilometers, it's really rewarding. 5 kilometers is rewarding, 10 kilometers rewarding. And then you start to ask yourself, why am I running for 2 hours and 3 hours and 4 hours?
Well, that's how you end up doing 100K, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. But I feel like...
But then it's just
but
so...
who's done 200K?
Yeah.
I've never heard the 200K run.
I think the hack for that is that's where you have to find new things that you don't know how to do. And then you need to find your hits from that. And right. And so that's how an ice bath just becomes normal. So now I need to find something, a replacement for that. Now that's just a habit. There's lots of good benefits. There's lots of things. Great. Now, if I want to get that circuitry, right, that dopamine hit or whatever it is that's making me feel good, it has to come from somewhere else.
Makes sense. It's like
what you're afraid of, right? Like if you're afraid of heights.
Yeah.
Go bungee jumping every other week.
Yeah, and you'll get a hit from that too.
Rock climbing, right? I went rock climbing with the kids recently, and I had to put on like a brave face because they're all running up the thing, and I'm like, I'm getting there. I was like using the Goggins mindset at a kid's, rock climbing wall, right? It's like completely safe. But I think that's, if I really wanted to, I could challenge myself, go there, a few times every week, and then build, resilience and do it.
Oh yeah, so I bungee jumped first time. Long time ago, been a few times since. I think out of all the things that I've tried, that will still be my number one fun, cool thing to do.
Yeah.
I think that if I were to bungee jump twice a day, every day, it would be just boring after a while. I went skydiving with my daughter last summer for the first time. And like you said, it was the lead up. It was all the way to leaving the plane. After that, there was nothing. Like, yeah, whatever. It's a free fall. I mean, like maybe in the back of my mind, I'm like, hope the chute opens.
I hope the chute goes.
You know, I don't want this guy on my back to slam me into the ground. What the heck? And it's like, but you know, but it was a great experience. It was just not, it was the driving to get there, getting suited up, going through the safety briefing, getting on the plane, flying up to the height, you know, being with all the people, you can feel the energy.
Yeah.
And then you're standing there at the door and it's like, oh my God. And then as soon as you're out, it's like, oh, that's over.
I
And
think
so,
like,
go ahead.
oh, sorry. No, you go.
Now I was just like, you know, that's the big deal out of it. I was like, oh, that ended pretty fast. Like, it's over already.
I was just going to say, so like with a lot of people that, you know, deal with mental challenges, everyone's got different degrees of it. I think having like that toolbox of, you know, whether it's running, whether it's, you know, skydiving, it's just different tools that you can add to your belt for when you need to bring yourself back to the present. And I think, you know, whether it's the ice bath, the cold showers, the run, whatever you're interested in, it's doing something that's uncomfortable to bring yourself back in the moment so you're not spending so much time thinking about the future.
Yeah, well, it's the trigger, right? Like in NLP, do you know what triggers are? It's like you can psychologically put a trigger.
Is that like the rubber band thing? Like you're like, okay.
It could be a rubber band thing. It could be lots of things.
Is it EMDR as well? EMDR is a sort of form of therapy that uses. Is that
plausibly? I'm unaware. I'm unaware.
Yeah.
But within NLP, I'll give you an example. So I'm a bit of a full moon fanatic for some reason. I just, ever since I was a little kid, when there's a full moon and I can see it, I think partially goes back to me being in grade school. My friend and I had quite an obsession with werewolves and vampires. And so maybe for a long time, I was hoping that if I liked the moon well enough, maybe I could be a werewolf. I don't know. Turns out that
I just came up with the wolf acronym before. the wolf
it was partially. Well, okay, I'll tell you. Look, I've had, you know, the fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood.
Yeah.
So, right, she's taking a basket to go see her grandma in the forest and she gets stalked by a wolf. And then, you know, blah, blah, blah. I have had probably, well, and, you know, they're less now, but when I was young, I had that dream of being stalked by a wolf in the forest like multiple times. And I've not tried to figure it out. Like it was, there's a message. I don't want to go all Freudian on it because maybe I don't want to know. But it was just kind of like, man, I know that wolf's there, and I'm scared to death. But like, just go that way, and you know, till he bites you in the neck. I guess everything's good. And so, I like the moon. I get a really big. All the hairs stand up on my body.
Goosebumps, yeah.
Like I can take a deep breath. So what I did was I developed an anchor for, I'll call it power. And power is an all-encompassing word. And the anchors are just my two middle fingers. So I'll stand and, I don't know, you can read about how you develop an anchor or how you can set an anchor.
Yeah.
Because you can also stack them, which is crazy. And this will be out in the full moon, and I'm just standing there. I'm taking these deep breaths, and I'm feeling this rush, man. I'm telling you, the hairs are coming up. I'm feeling the vibe is so big, and I'm just like pushing my fingers together. I'm like, power, yeah. And now, man, like
with
that.
a werewolf, yeah.
And literally, man, I can be anywhere now, and in a split second, I can just go in my brain. I mean, it's happening right now, man. I got the hairs are standing up. I can just access that in a split second.
So I guess the trick there is to have a trigger that you always have with you, whether it's breathing, your fingers, like just something.
Yeah, you don't want to set a trigger of jumping jacks or something because you'd look like an idiot, right? If you suddenly break down into some jumping jacks. Yeah.
Now we're good.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
But, you know, so you know Tony Robbins, where you mentioned him before. I've got the book. Awaken the Giant Within. I think it's like 1995 or something. Like it's forever old.
It's a great book.
And he's obviously a master practitioner of NLP. If you ever get to see it, I think some YouTube videos of him backstage before he goes on, you'll see him do this and do a spin around and head out on stage. They're just both anchors.
Yeah,
right. He's just accessing what needs to be accessed to do that.
So, Dave, just quickly.
Yeah.
So just going back a second, so you have that surge of energy when you're looking at the moon, and then you found a way to create a trigger out of it. So how would someone do that, like in everyday life? Like how do I say if I wanted to create a trigger? Is there a process?
Yeah, well, and so you need to have an emotion.
An anchor, sorry, not a trigger.
You want to create an anchor. So the way that it happens is that you need to think about what you want to have as the resource. It could be bravery. Yeah. Like I need to be, use an example with men, right? Like women are beautiful. And it's like, and most of them are terrified of them. Like they've got some, I don't know, they're not Medusa, you're not going to get turned to stone. You just have to go say hi. But so many guys, they're just like, it's terrifying. It's like, okay, well, you need a little bit of bravery. And so what needs to happen then is we need to be in a situation where you're calm and there's no external sources that are amping things up. And then it's great when you have a person do this with you. You can do it yourself. It's a little more challenging. Is that you need to go back in time and go discover a time where you were really brave.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, for me, the one that just popped into my head was being on top of this big hill on my bike. I'm in about grade 5 or 6, and at the bottom of the hill, there's this jump off another hill. And we used to kill ourselves off this thing. It was ridiculous. And that was like that first time. That's bravery. And so what needs to happen then is you go back to this time, see what you saw, feel what you felt, hear what you heard when you were feeling the most brave. And a great way to do it is to make it a motion picture, make it in color, in focus, make all the senses amped up. And as soon as you can feel that at its peak, you fire that anchor, whatever it is, touching your fingers, squeezing your fists together, a little rub on your knee, I don't know, whatever, right? Scratch your nose. Yeah. And then it's set. And then what needs to happen is you need to test it. And if it needs to be reset, you reset it, and test it and reset it and test it and reset it. And that's why it's really important to find what you think was the bravest thing that you ever did. Because if it's not going to be as effective. And that's how anchors are set. And you can do it for anything. But like, really cool. It was like you were saying, is that you can have all the tools where you want, but if you're not taking them out and using them on the daily, like a carpenter would or whomever,
they'll stop
they're useless.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where it can be a little bit slippery for people, right? Because we'll believe that, if I just had 5 more tools in my toolbox, I'd be set. And it's like, you got 15, you're set.
It's just 5. It's just 5.
I got 50 tools, guys.
Choose them. Choose one.
Like your explanation as they brought back the NLP, I think. The example where I've heard it explained before is like somebody who's got, like talking to the point of being a man and like doing certain responsibilities. And let's say your job's very physical or your job's very stressful. You come home, you've got kids, you've got your wife, and you notice your work and your stress is spilling into your family and you're not being the best father, husband, partner. So you go through the door and like you tap on the door handle or some part and you go, all right, as soon as I tap this is my anchor and work's done, that stress is done. And now I'm a cool cucumber coming through this door,
Well, isn't it one of the most fascinating things of how the brain can do that though? It's like you can come home and you're ready to just start knocking heads off shoulders. And then the next thing you know, it's a deep breath, touch the door handle, and that all disappears. And now you're just love. That's like, okay. And so that's the thing. So like Atomic Habits, right? You talk about the habit circle. You got the 1%. You got the 1%. Habit stacking was a big one for me, right? Yeah. The tool thing is just like, pick the tool. You don't need a whole bunch. You just need the one,
So true.
And then just use that until it becomes so ingrained in your habits and behaviors that now you can maybe add another tool. You know, look,
Absolutely.
I got to say from this, I am by no means the master of all this. I know a heck of a lot about it. I implement as much as I can with myself and hope that that puts me a little ahead of where I was yesterday. You know, that 1% rule, right? Like, you know, imagine when he was talking about the 1% rule, and it's like, well, if you improve 1% per day at the end of the year, you're 37
times better.
better.
Yeah.
And you could tell that to 1,000 people and 10 of them are going to do it.
Very true.
And the other bunch they're like, what? And that's the part that confuses me. I just can't figure out, like, well, you just got handed the keys to a Ferrari and probably the best life that you could have. And you're like nonchalant about it. Like, nah, maybe not.
But isn't that the life lesson? It's like, it's not about doing the hard thing. It's about doing the simple things for a very long time. You know, like.
I think
Yeah, well, right. And so that's that's where you go with the dopamine hits, because we're always thinking that there's something very big and better. And we'd be probably somewhat abysmally shocked knowing that doing life the right way is relatively simple and boring.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I was about to say, I guess, well, I think it's interesting because I think there's a lot of people in life that will unconsciously just go through life never actually having this awareness about the fact that they actually do have control over their lives. And you see it in some people that, you know, everyone's got that friend who's always the victim, who's always, you know, got that negative thing to say, right?
And
they believe it almost.
Coffee stop. Just,
Right.
Like,
Yeah. And if you're not careful and you spend a lot of time listening to that, it's infectious. It can infect you and you think you're strong enough to sort of barrier to it, but no, like we are ingrained social beings that, you know, very much need connection. And I feel like, you know, how do you get people, and I guess this is where you can help people, Dave, is how do you get people from unconscious to becoming conscious that they do have this power within them, and how can they wake that power up and then change the direction of their life? And, you know, rather than, that I guess.
Well, I think, you know, listen, if you were ever in the position, if I was in the position to be able to have somebody set an anchor and be able to fire it and see it work, that's probably one of the fastest ways. But like I said before, stand up straight and walk with some purpose and see how you start feeling, right? Start focusing on the present, right? Or try and be conscious of your self-talk. Like, what do you say to yourself? You make a mistake, you're a bloody idiot. Like, really? That's how you're going to treat yourself today. Just beat yourself up. Like, so to answer that more succinctly, it would be, look, you know, if you're living sort of in this unconscious world of just existing and maybe thinking that you want better and whatnot, is that, well, you need those tools. And so what I found is that, you know, look, people want something to work fast, have it not take a lot of time, not cost a lot of money, you know, like the easy route, shall we say. And so there's some things that you can do to get them into the getting harder route, right? Because there's some stuff to learn, you know, but they need that instant something to get. And then they're like, oh, shoot, like that? Yeah, I could do that. Oh, okay, well, you know, what if I just maybe tried a little bit doing that? And then you just start piling on wins, right? Think about it this way. It's like, most people that I talk with, whether it's in personal training or talking about mental performance stuff, athletes or something like that, especially young ones, right? Like 15-year-olds, because they're tough to get through. Like, I can't even remember myself at 15. And then I think to myself, God, you're in front of a room of 15-year-old hockey players trying to tell them how to do things. It's like, oh God. But what's interesting is that for most of our lives, most of the time, we've concentrated on the things that we've done lousy, right? Our defeats, the crap that's happened to us. And then all of a sudden we put those trophies up on a shelf. Like, it's like, look at how shitty I did that time. Yeah. And then, but there's no ring full of trophies for wins. And so if the win was, look, the win could be, I got out of bed today. look, man, if that's the start of your winning cycle, that's where you're at, right? I want to get more fit. And then I say to somebody, well, and then they, oh my God, like the mountain in front of them is massive. And I go, do you think you could can you walk that way for 15 minutes, then come home? Yeah. And then when you get home, I want you, and hope, like if they're partnered, I'm like, talk to the partner and I'm separately. And I'm like, whenever they freaking do something, you need to be their biggest fan. Like celebrate the win. Because there's no mystery to just how well people will do if you're a fan of theirs. That's their dopamine hit. Then they start looking for that. Yeah, they don't look for it with TikTok and porn and drugs or whatever. They're like, no, because we all want to be noticed, accepted, thought of in a higher regard to some degree. Yeah. And so when you can get a little bit of external validation, of course, you got to be a little careful about that. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, that's a huge thing. Stacking wins is big. Look, we all learned how to crawl, walk, talk, ride a bike for the first time, ask a girl out, ace a test, throw a curveball. I don't know, pick your wins and go back in time and find some and start being your biggest fan instead of your biggest hater.
Yeah, you know, I don't think hate is a good drive.
No, I mean, I beat myself up on so much stuff, you know, and like throughout lifetimes. And I didn't know I was doing it at the time. I didn't know that you could have changed things. And that's why now I think I'm super enthusiastic, is like, oh my God, I wasted a whole life without anything, like without doing this stuff in this way. And now I'm just like, tick-tock, time's ticking, man. You only got so many spins around the sun. Like, how many people can you tell this to? How big of a impact can I have? And, you know, I know maybe I'm over dreaming about what I think I can accomplish, but it's like, no, that's my drive now. It's like, yeah.
You got the perfect platform for it as well, Dave.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens.
It's huge, isn't it? It's massive.
Go ahead.
Sorry, you guys. I was just going to say.
There's a page.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. There's one Goggins page on Facebook with like 312,000 followers. And now this is my ego getting involved. I'm like,
the wins.
We'll fucking crush you.
Yeah.
Crush you. And for no other reason, it's not my ego. I kind of care in an offhand way, but it's like, no, I want all the people that are in the group to be in the biggest group. Yeah. I want all the people in the group to know that, yeah, we took that from 0 to 10 grand to 100 grand to 275 to 500 in like 2 years. And so I haven't done this yet, but there will be a time where I'm going to be on the page with the video or some type of thing. And I think I might give away some coaching or something like that. And I'll just be like, look, all I want everybody to do that can see this message, invite a friend to join the page. Now, the problem is when everybody joins the page, I have to sort through the requests. And so every day there's 100, or 200. And within those requests, I can sort them into 3 different things. And so there's a bit of a cheat in terms of, like, you'd be surprised at how many people don't get into the group. Wow. Maybe 30%, maybe more. And I'll tell you, it all just comes down to the questions. So, and here's why. It was like, what's your biggest struggle in life? Here's your 4 things to choose from. Would you like me to send you a way to overcome that? No problem. And would you like direct contact from me about what I do as a coach? Now, in the big picture, and for the first little while, everybody joined. I hadn't put those questions up, so it wasn't a big deal. And then I put the questions up, and it slowed down a bit. And then I realized how many people chose not to answer the questions. And much like how I deal with people that are rude on the page, because I put the rules up and I put a post later that said, here's the rules, you read them, there's no second chances. You screw up, we'll just delete you, it's no big deal. And at first I thought I was being a little bit overbearing, and I was just like, well, you said yes, so now I guess you got to go. Like, you can't call her a fat bitch.
Yeah, that's true.
I know you're using an inappropriate use of humor here.
Yeah.
And you think it's funny, but other people don't. And then what it all washed out to for me was, it was like, look, you said you were self-disciplined. You wanted discipline. That's what you even said in your bloody answers. And you can't do that. So I guess you got to go. And then after a while, I was like, well, if they're not missed and they don't miss us, they go join another page. But anyway, so I'm going to go on and just say, look, kind of join up. And then I just want the page to blow up even bigger, you know, and be good, be filled with good people.
Yeah.
Like you.
I guess you run the risk of, like, you've got members who join in, like, it's helpful for them during a time, and then they just become observers and potentially turn toxic, or like they're just not, you know, I've got what I needed from this group. So it's good to, you know, sort of.
Well, there's something about Facebook that I don't quite understand about the page, because we've got two chat rooms, right? One is accountability mindset, and the other one's for 75 hard. Yeah. There could be 20. Everybody just goes on whatever and talks about whatever. And so is
that like a breakout chat that's within the group or something like that? Or okay.
Well, because within the group, most people just post, and then there'll be comments, and sometimes they'll get into a bit of a discussion, but the chat's there for people who just want. What I find is there's thousands of people in it, and it's very quiet. And so it's like, well, you said you wanted to join, and now you're a ghost. But if I go inside the chat, when I add people to the chat groups, it'll show me how many people within the group are online. And at any given time, it's somewhere around 30,000.
Wow. That's huge.
Right? And so we got this massive membership, but really there's a small amount of that are active. Yeah. And so
just think about that for a second, right? Like, we get 100 views, we're like, oh, it's only 100 views on our podcast. Being in a room with 100 people would be like really intimidating. Imagine being in a hall with 30,000 people. So we're like downplaying these numbers, you know, just because it's online.
No, yeah, right. You know what's funny? You say that about, do you know the name Alex Hormozy?
Yeah. Yeah. Like very entrepreneurial business.
Yeah.
guy.
So he runs something called School Now, SKOOL, and it's much like a Russell Brunson ClickFunnels sort of, I'll help you develop business and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, his thing, I was reading a book about, he's got a book called $100 Million Offers.
Yeah, and he's got leads, I think, as well.
And then he's got the leads book, which I'm reading right now. And he goes like, look, here's the thing. You post on social media. What are your measurement metrics, right? Like, you're doing a podcast. If your podcast goes from 100 views to 115 views, and you're disappointed, you got to give each other a little smack on the face because you just went up 15%. Yeah, right? Like it's a big
it's pretty good.
deal. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, if I do something and I get, 5 responses, and then the next month I get 10, I just doubled, right? Even though it's down here, it's still double. And that's the celebrate the wins thing.
I wonder, Dave, if Goggins himself will show up one day. You're getting that big, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, I should just reach out to him, eh?
Yeah, you should actually. It would be interesting.
I don't think I could keep up with his mind and his banter.
He'd probably challenge you to a 100K run.
Well, I tell you what, man, I had surgery on my knees like 25 years ago. Couldn't play soccer anymore, and it just killed me. And it's one of the things that I miss probably the most is the ability to run. That's it. I mean, I could go out for a run. The problem is now I have to do ice and Advil for 5 days, and I'm in massive amounts of pain, and it's horrible. So it's not worth it. The movie, what was the movie, Avatar?
Yeah.
You see that movie, right? Guy gets in the pod, then he gets to
you don't want to be
the
that
alien.
Guy. Yeah.
Well, no, but when he's the part where the first time, and all of a sudden he's in the and he goes outside and starts running. And he's running
he's
through the
athletic
field.
now.
I've had dreams of that, man. Or I am
really?
just sprinting so fast in fields, and I'm just like, I'll wake up and I'm like, oh, it's disappointing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
Your
it's
mind's
not
just
gonna
playing with you,
happen.
Dave. That's that.
That was the metaverse. That's what they promised us, the
Yeah.
metaverse and, the goggles.
Your mind
Well,
was like,
that's-
screw
oh
you,
my-
Dave, for that ice bath yesterday. Here's a dream. Have
Yeah.
fun with that one.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, I look, I'm excited for what's going to come with the page. I'm excited for, I think, what's on my plate for the people on the page that maybe, because I'll be doing like weekly seminars and stuff with mental performance and, even with fitness and nutrition. What I've discovered, just if I can, is that people who know how to do it don't have much patience for people who don't. And so that's why you'll get things like, well, just harden up, or I'll make a thing about, nutrition or fitness of some sort that people will get somewhat. They know what they know, and they don't know that other people don't know. And
They
so
forget
now
when
they're-
they were starting out.
yeah, they
too,
forgot
right?
when they were
They
starting
forgot.
out, right?
Yeah.
And so I always approach it just like, look, man, I'm just out here to start at the lowest common denominator. Because I put out a thing early on in the page. I took a lot of flack for something about mindset. I did a quick little webinar of some sort, or a live stream. And then I got messages, and these guys were just hating on me about whatever, right? And I was just like, oh, because at first I was like, yeah, that's the end path, right? Like, I don't want to do this no more. And then I had to slow down and go, well, wait a minute, where's this guy coming from? Yeah, right? Obviously touched a couple nerves, because you're right. And so I was just like, okay, meet people, like you said, man, meet people where they are. And some people will get more out of it, and some people won't. And some people will be more enthusiastic, and some people won't care. No big deal.
And it's fine. And you can't not help people because a few people don't like the help you're giving,
No, I know. Well, and that's where you have to have that a bit of decent discipline and focus. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's like, look, man, I know my path. Proved it. F the haters.
F the haters.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, just quickly, and I guess it's about time that we're wrapping up. Is there anything you want to sort of promote about the page at all, or anything you want to say?
I mean, I would love everybody just, come have a peek at the page, see what's on there, join it, answer the questions. They're simple. I'll send you an email. If you never want another email again, you won't get one. It's no big deal. I don't mind, mentalperformancecoach.ca is my mental performance webpage. You come see that. I've got one called dadbodgone.ca, which I'm redoing. It was started out as a mental fitness and nutrition page. And then I started getting really into this mental performance. And I was like, oh, I was ahead of my own time 3 years ago. Okay, well, now I got to resort this out a little bit. So we'll get that up and going again. But as for the page, I think it's like knowing that there are so many people out there wanting to be a part of something. It doesn't have to be our page. Just go find something where you get the support that you want, and you find a tribe that you like, and maybe there's that response from somebody that likes your post, and then, well, maybe you become buddies thousands of miles away. Yeah, and then you can become each other's biggest fans, and God, that's all that we want, particularly as guys. It's just like, yeah, man, I just want some cool buds, and, get to know some nice people, and because it can be pretty lonely sometimes, right?
Yeah, especially with this online, the online society that we live in, I guess. Yeah, it can be definitely pretty lonely.
Well, connecting with people is a big deal. It really is a big deal. And it's like, I think maybe people sometimes throw that out too fast. I know I'm guilty of it. It's like, I should maybe spend more time actually talking with somebody and doing my best to do the 2 ears, 1 mouth thing and just listen to them. And just be amazed at what people will tell you if you just shut up. Pretty
Absolutely.
trippy, man.
Yeah.
Pretty trippy.
I very much agree with that.
You know, and so there's all these lessons in life that I should have known, probably knew, didn't do, and I'm just sort of reintroducing myself to them now, and I'm just beyond. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, you could do this, what? You know, and it's just like, yeah, I love it. So
cool.
I really appreciate being a part of this. I mean, it's the first time that I've been on a podcast. I will say what's funny about it is that it wasn't much more than a year ago where I was actually going, man, it'd be pretty cool to get on a podcast. And I was thinking of like a couple of friends that do it and stuff, or acquaintances that do it, and I never reached out kind of thing. And then I just have a little chuckle about it now, thinking, yeah, the universe just was like, yo, let's write that down. We'll deliver that later. And then here it is.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, we got you. Remember that thing you were asking for? Oh, yeah. Well, and I'll say this, it's like, you know, I don't think that we get the things that we want to have. I don't think they show up in our life unless we put in some work, right?
For sure.
Yeah, right. And so
Sometimes the first step is just being open and, you know, not having like any assumptions, like whether it's joining a Facebook group or being part of someone else's podcast or starting your own thing. Just don't have your own preconceived ideas of what it's going to be like. Just show up, I think.
Yeah, well, that's one of the hardest things to do, right? Like, I don't know how many times you decided to start a podcast and didn't do it. I bet it was more than one. Yeah, right?
Yeah. And now we're sort of just pushing our way through. We know we have heaps to work on. There's a whole journey ahead of us, right?
Well, you think of Alex Ramosi, and he will tell you how many times he did a podcast.
How many times?
I think he's
too many times.
I think he said I did one every week or every day for like 3 years.
Wow.
And then or twice a week for 3 years, 3 times for 3 years. He goes, it just, I could have been talking to nobody, like his live streams or whatever they were. And then he suddenly, you know, well, I don't know, acquisition.com makes like $1 million a day or something. That's crazy.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exciting. I think for me, doing this podcast with Mark, I want to grow as a person, and this has always been something I'm pretty afraid of doing. And this is to me, but I'm good at talking. I'm good at connecting with people. But once there's an audience, that really changes things.
So this is the way to take the audience in front of you. They're just imaginary and ether, and now you can be comfortable as you are. Look, I'm really proud of you for doing what you did, particularly in knowing about you and, dealing with your life the way that you have. I mean, what a great outlet and what a beautiful way a great way to discover how to honor yourself and make yourself heal yourself in a sense, right? By just, yeah, man. I mean, look, like, I think that's the thing where if we all just searched out a little bit about what could we do to really feel good about ourselves, and really, like, maybe it's quit your job and open up that dog park that you wanted to. Like, it's not always about the 9 to 5 or whatever it is, right? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to babble about that.
No, it's true.
You got to do stuff that you like, And I will say, in seeing you do this, as being a part of this, is that I've got a green screen in my office. I've had it for 4 weeks now. I haven't done anything except set it up. I don't know how many live stream subject matter things I have logged. I got more than I could just talk every day forever. And so having you do it, just so you know, I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to come catch you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
it's on.
yeah.
It's
no,
on.
Yeah,
it's
right.
On.
And it might not be a podcast, but it's certainly like the live streams or just putting out
similar, very similar
stuff. Just putting stuff out, just doing the reps.
Yeah.
Because I know I'm going to be bloody lousy at it to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can't tell after all this time, I probably talk 75, 80% of the time.
Well,
So I got some stuff to learn.
Well, it's a podcast, so I think we do need to talk.
We do actually need. Oh my God, dude!
Sorry about that.
We didn't even have that.
No, look, you're absolutely correct, right? But it's just so funny. It's just kind of like, oh, dude, you were a guest, and all you did was just manipulate everybody's time. And then I just had a laugh in my head just now. I was like, didn't you just say something about 2 ears and 1 mouth? And then look at you go.
No, but I think for me, on the other side of that, is I'm learning to listen more. In my early 20s, as a young man, I was heavily anxious, trying to be right. Like I wanted to make sure that I was safe in my beliefs, right? Like you were saying, fitting the circles in the squares type thing, right?
Yeah.
But as I'm getting older, I realized that doesn't work. It doesn't work very well in bringing happiness and love and peace. And so I'm on that journey as well. And so I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to learn from people. And today
you're
I
doing
learned
a
heaps.
great job so
I learned
far,
heaps from today's session.
Oh,
and now
that's
I'm going
awesome.
to do the 75 stay hard.
Yeah.
I'm actually genuinely going to do it. And I'm going to post it on the fan page.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give it a go. I mean, look, like I said, maybe you'll nail it out of the gate.
No, I won't.
But what I've discovered myself was just the fact that I chose to do something that I didn't know if I could or not. I said I'd do my best. I got a lot of great self-discipline and habits out of it. And again, it was just there was a big win, right? Like it just makes
Huge
me
win.
desire to go and take on other challenges in life.
Huge win.
Yeah.
And that discipline will now allow you can apply that to, like you said, doing the bits and putting the content out. And then that then further helps people, right? So the more you help yourself, essentially, is the more you actually are able to help others as well. And helping others is an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I've been a bit of a greedy, obstinate prick for most of my life. So it's been a lot. The lesson has taken a long time to learn, and sometimes I'm still a grumpy. Now I'm on the precipice of being a grumpy old man. And so I want that to not, I don't want that to happen. I'll just think the inside thoughts if they happen, but I can't be in this position to be, being upset about stuff. It's like, man, life's short. Let's get after it and make it a better place for sure.
That's it. Merry fucking Christmas, as Goggins would say.
Yeah, right.
What's the other one? Carry the boats, yeah.
Cool. When he was doing so that guy with the bows, Cam, what's his name? There's a video of him and Gog.
Cam Todd.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't want to Google it right now, but
that's what we need. We need like a Jamie, like Joe Rogan's Jamie equivalent.
Oh yeah.
When we get big enough, that's the goal.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, bring it up, Scott.
Yes.
Maybe.
Just hire some random off the street and it's like, listen, we got 2 pairs of jeans, sandwich, and yeah.
Love it.
He he's in the gym and he's just getting after her, like, you don't know me, kind of thing, right? He's just screaming it. And I was just like, how wild is it to just be like your biggest fan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like not egotistical, not anything other than I enjoy being me. I like life. Or at least it's way better to like life than to pretend that it's all freaking doom and gloom. Because believe me, man, the universe wants to kill you. There's no doubt about it. But,
parts of it, yeah, definitely. Not all
right?
of it.
Like, no, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Definitely. Well, on that, actually, it's interesting, Dave. I find the more you are comfortable in your own skin, the more you are actually putting positivity in the world. You'll know you're doing it well when you start to get resistance from people, when you start getting people who having stabs at you, like you're getting in the comments, right? Who are having a crack at you. That's when you know you're on the right path. If everyone's like, yeah, you're leaving you alone, you're probably not genuinely.
There's not many ripples in the pond that you're in. Yeah. No, you're absolutely correct. Thank you for saying that again. It's one of those things that I kind of forget. And it's like, well, if I didn't touch the nerve with somebody, right? And then exactly. Look, man, I don't know if I helped them. Maybe I did.
I hate you for helping me.
I hate you. That guy, that one time he said this, and oh my God. And then it's in those moments of silence when you're about to fall asleep or you're reflecting on your day, and then it hits you like a ton of bricks, right? Like for me, that's what happens. I'll be lying there and I'll be thinking about my day, and then all of a sudden, like something will pop up. It'll be like, why did you say that to that person that way? Or whatever it was, right? And it was just like, oh, right. Okay, cool. And then, because if you take the time to think about it, it's like, oh, maybe I need to set another anchor for acceptance or something.
I think you go.
That big smile on your face, that smile when you say something or somebody says something, you're like, and in your brain, you're like, that's the most whack stuff I've ever heard. But
yeah, I feel that. You were saying something, Mark?
I forget. I've lost my train of thought. But no, look,
that's all right.
Thanks so much for joining us on this podcast, Dave, and sharing your wisdom and story.
Super happy, super glad to be a part of it. Next time we'll
do it again for sure. I think.
Yeah, we'll come up with. We'll have a couple plans. We'll get a Jamie, and then we'll have a small amount of subject matter, and then we'll just let it wander off the tracks to wherever it gets to.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're still learning to be more comfortable, as you can. We're still learning to be ourselves more, and it comes through in moments, And I think nerves definitely has an impact on. And you look back and you go, oh man, I wish I could only just be. But that's where the reps come in, right? The more reps we do it, the more comfortable we are.
I don't know, man.
We've
all watched podcasts. They're all just normal people.
Correct.
Right? They all got stuff to say. They all have opinions. They all look like this. It's like, that's the weird thing about being a human, eh? It was we're like, oh, we wish we were this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, well, everybody's the same, different. So just sort that out. People out on your way.
Definitely.
It's easy peasy.
Easy peasy.
What are you going to do when you guys are famous?
We're going to fly up to Vancouver.
And,
we're going to go hiking.
Go
with some
find some bears.
Let's do it.
Excellent. That's a deal and a half.
We actually
come down to Australia. We can hunt spiders.
Yeah, with crossbows. It's that dead out there. Seriously, it's like you go into nature. It's like just kangaroos and birds, and like that's about it, pretty much.
Yeah, well, then maybe we're seeing the bad side of Australia when we see the videos of
you are
snakes swimming out of lakes at people and
this
giant.
is not happening. Yeah, I mean not often. I mean,
no,
like if you go real far out, you would.
Right. Yeah. No, well, maybe when I'm famous, I'll come down there too. We'll go surfing instead because I don't surf very well, but I'd love to.
No, that'd be awesome. No, dear, always welcome, Dave. I'd love to catch up in real life as well.
For sure, brother. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Till next time.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon. Definitely.
Wonderful. All right.
See you later.
Bye for now.
Cheers,